white-collar criminals have had it pretty good in this country for the last few decades with little to no prosecutions, a few paltry fines for some of the worst environmental financial crimes possible, and very little oversight. But new data tells us that things for corrupt CEOs and corporations are better than ever, with white-collar punishment hitting a new low in this country. Joining me to talk about this and other big stories this week is Farron Cousins, editor of the National Trial Lawyer magazine. No surprises here.
Right.
I mean, I saw this. This is about everything we expected. That, you know, we knew Trump was going to, his whole agenda was to deregulate. And one way you deregulate is to let white-collar thugs get away with white-collar crimes while you go after the people, the have-nots. That's what this administration, you know, if immigration, we're going to prosecute you. You know, street crime, we're going to prosecute you big time. But a man with a briefcase can steal millions of dollars more than a man with a gun these days. And that's what's happening here, isn't it?
It is. And to be honest, you know, you could have replaced Donald Trump's name there with any of the other people who had also run for president as a Republican. This is what happens. And they're very clear about it. They let us know. And they let these major corporations know, you vote for me, you give me money to my campaign, I'm going to make sure we take it a little bit easier on you. I know Obama, I mean, this is what they say, he was so tough on you, we're going to make it easy. Obama was not tough on them. To be honest, the biggest shocker of this story was the amount of fines that actually were imposed during those years. I never even thought it was that high. But again, nothing but fines.
Yeah, here's the deal. Okay, so Eric Holder is AG. We want to say, oh, well, Eric Holder did a better job. No, he really didn't do a better job. We had Obama come out. He was going to be the president that changed all this. He was going to change our culture by putting white-collar, bottom-feeding thugs on Wall Street in prison for stealing $3 trillion from our economy after the economic burndown. And you remember him running. I mean, I was actually a commentator on a show where they showed him giving this speech and asked for my comment. I was delighted. Yeah. I said, well, it's time for a president to finally throw some thugs in prison. You know how many were thrown in prison? Zero. But then, you know, the comparison here is, did Eric Holder fine people more? Yeah, it was inconsequential fines, but at least he fined somebody. Here, just the opposite is happening. I mean, the numbers we'll put up on the screen and show you. The EPA down 94% on violations that the Sessions administration has identified. DOJ down 90%, FCC down 85%. Goes on and on. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, look, the EPA is especially troubling at this point because, yes, we've got these horrible bankers out there. We've got the horrible people with the FCC. But these environmental crimes that are not being punished, these are things that you feel the effects of for generations, right? I mean, look, we've got this massive coal ash pond in North Carolina right now that has absolutely flooded, broken through. You've got coal ash that's about to seep down into the aquifer. That's going to poison people for decades.
Okay, look, this story bothered me a little bit because there were no comparisons between what's happening now and what happened under Obama. They identify that the DOJ failed to prosecute banks for none other than laundering money for terrorists. Well, what did we see with the Obama administration? What they paid $1 billion, HSBC paid $1 billion plus fine, where they actually had a document where they admitted, item by item, it was a 2-page document, where they admitted, yes, we broke this law, it even concluding that it may have cost American lives. So they go through this litany of all the crimes that they had violated and said, oh, well, we're sorry, we'll pay $1 billion. They made, the numbers that were calculated were well in excess of $120 billion that the same bank made by the same kind of conduct.
Well, what's also disgusting out of this story is that we're finding out now that people who report these corporations for fraud and abuse against the government, they're actually not even finding them as often anymore. They're cracking down on these whistleblowers who come forward and say, hey, this big bank is ripping off the government. This contractor is providing you with shoddy service or products when you're paying them billions of dollars. They're taking the side of the corporation who's ripping them off instead of the whistleblower
Well,
now.
this is how they're doing it. It used to be an agency would give guidelines. They would say, here are the guidelines that we expect to be put in place with the SEC, the EPA, whatever. Here are the guidelines. If you violate the guidelines, you've broken the law, and that's how whistleblower cases actually originated. You'd have the guidelines, you'd show that the corporation was ripping off consumers to the billions of dollars, actually affecting people's lives in the way they rip things off. And here's the guidelines, and they said, well, we violated the guidelines. You could bring a whistleblower case. It's made it very difficult to do that right now.